What's up everyone, OJ here, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, or the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and how that, in addition to Nintendo, proved that E3 is now more about actual games that you're going to be able to play, seeing gameplay, and getting those in a reasonable amount of time, instead of hype, CG trailers, and maybe you'll play this within the next 2 to 3 years. So let's go ahead and get into it first. And you guys know I have to speak about the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, or the sequel to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now on Nintendo's official page, they do say it's a sequel to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it does seem like it takes place after the events of the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Some people are saying maybe it's a prequel, but they already said it's going to be a sequel based on what Nintendo has officially put out there. So it looks like Ganon might be coming back in some way, shape, or form, or maybe there's some type of influence. There's probably going to be something crazy. And this game, to me, because they showed it and it wasn't a CG trailer. It wasn't something like they showed originally with the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, where that necessarily I don't think was the end result of what the game could be. Whereas this one, you can clearly tell that it was within the engine and it was the same Hyrule that we've seen, but it looked a little bit snazzier because I'm pretty sure that they took that same engine that they do have, that they worked so hard on, that broke multiple times, and refined it and pretty much put it to where it's going to be the best it can be on the Nintendo Switch. Because you have to remember, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was a Wii U game. This is going to be a complete Switch game made particularly for that system. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what improvements that they do have. So I love that it was the in-engine trailer, and it's going to be representative of what we're probably going to be getting in the game. Now, the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild did kind of end on somewhat of a, I don't know what's going to be happening here. So it does seem like this game is going to answer a lot of those questions. And I think that with Nintendo announcing Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, or the sequel to it, they're really trying to set the stage that the Nintendo Switch is not done. The Nintendo Switch is here to stay. We're going to have a ton more games, and we're not going to drop support. Just because other companies are announcing their next gen hardware or talk about the next gen hardware, we still have a ton of games for you to play. And I think that's what separates Nintendo, the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and kind of what they're doing with that type of game with what we're seeing from other places here. And that's what I love about this E3. But to talk a little bit more about Breath of the Wild 2 before we move on, it was, I think, a great announcement for Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 because it was completely unexpected. Nobody expected them to talk about Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild this early. And if it was going to happen, maybe it would happen at, like, let's say a Game Awards, which they've announced Legend of Zelda before or showed off more of the game there. Or maybe it would happen like at a Nintendo Direct, but we did get the reveal of the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at E3. So maybe there's probably some people out there, but it was just so crazy to me because we just got off of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild about 2 years ago. And for them to already kind of say, here you go, we have this right here, give us that nice little in-engine tease, was absolutely amazing. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about when this game could potentially come out. Now, if you look at it, I'm pretty sure that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo Switch was done for quite some time. I think they held on to it for the launch of the release. So technically speaking, based on what Anuma-san has said in the past, it seems like this game has been in development for multiple years, almost probably since like 2017 or so that it's been in development. They finished up DLC. I don't think the whole team was working on that. So I definitely feel that they had some top secret Nintendo ninja working on Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 while everyone else finished up the base of the game. So it could date back as far as 2016 for this game. So this game could release a lot sooner than expected based on them showing that nice in-engine trailer and them already revealing it at this point, and probably not wanting to make the same mistake that they made before with the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And if you look at it, when it comes to Switch cycles and what you're doing here, 2017, next year is going to be the 3rd anniversary of the Nintendo Switch. Makes sense if you started working on it at that point that you are going to have that game ready in the next 2 to 3 years if you're using that engine and refining it. So it does make sense to me. Now let's talk a little bit more about E3 and how Nintendo's kind of rewrote the definitions for E3, because in the past, and this is something that I've talked about before with other people, E3 is about hype. Is about hype for games that you probably won't see for multiple years. And we're not just talking about a game or two, we're talking about the whole list of games. That's what E3 has been a lot about. You'll see a lot of publishers and developers talk about games, give you CG trailers, and not actually give you any gameplay, not give you release dates. I mean, we've seen that a lot. You see a game and then 3 years later it comes out, or 2 years later it comes out, or potentially even 4 to 5 years later it comes out. And in some cases, for example, like Kingdom Hearts 3, that was, I think, vaporware at the time that it was announced. That was just like a CG rendition or something. I'm not sure if they even had anything to show when they announced that. It didn't come out till 6 years later. 6 years later, a game like that. And that's what used to win E3s, was announcements of games that aren't even anywhere near close to being announced, or them announcing something and then it comes out multiple years afterwards and they're continuously showing the same game over and over and over, because the game had no business being announced so far out, 2-3 years ahead of time. So I think that what Nintendo's done, and what I love about this, is that they've shifted the focus. Yes, you can still have a game or two that is a year or some odd months out, but talk about the games, talk about everything that people are going to be playing at this point. Talk about 2019 games, and that is the key factor why I think Nintendo's 2019 was the best E3 that I've ever watched, because it had the most games that I wanted to play within a year's worth of release. So we're talking games that were announced at that show, for example, like Trials of Mana, which is the remake of Seiken Densetsu 3. That game is coming out 2020, early 2020. So it's announced, and it's not going to be like a game that's like 2022 or 2021 based on their release date given. Something like No More Heroes 3, that game was announced right now. At this point, it's coming out 2020. So we're going to get it next year. More games that they showed off that was announced this year and were released this year and gave us more footage on those games, like Astral Chain. That game is just looking so good, and we got more gameplay of it, and we got more details on the game. I like when they announce the game and then they launch it in that same year. Maybe they give us a little teaser trailer, then give us more information at E3 and kind of go all out on the gameplay. That is what E3 has evolved into, in my opinion, and that is, to me, the best way to do E3. Not just talking about games for the first time in the CG trailer, then it comes out 2-3 years later, but actually showing content you're going to be able to play within this year or next year, within a year's time. And it was so good to see so many games get 2020 or 2019 releases. If you look at all the stuff they talked about, it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal what they went over. Even something like Animal Crossing, for example, that being officially kind of revealed last year, but it was a teaser. I'm not even sure if it was real gameplay. It was just Tom Nook talking, but we got the real reveal of the game and then the announcement for 2020. So not too far off in terms of when we first see the gameplay and when we can get our hands on the game. So I'm really excited about stuff like that when it comes to E3, and I'm hoping that a lot of companies start forming their E3s into that. We saw Square Enix do a lot of that in terms of getting stuff that we're going to be able to get this year and next year. No more 3, 4, 5 years out like they've done before. No more vaporware titles, but games that we're actually going to be able to play, because they saw what they did with Kingdom Hearts 3. They saw what they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake. They showed those off way too early to hype up the Sony audience, and it ended up, I think, hurting them in the end. When you can just wait a little bit, and when it's ready to show it and hype everybody up right there when you're ready to show off the gameplay. Imagine us actually getting that Square Enix Final Fantasy VII Remake gameplay for the first time at this year's E3 than it launching next year. That would have been, in my opinion, way better than sitting there and announcing it all the way back in 2015 and us waiting 5 years for the game. So I feel that it's much better to do it this way, and companies are going to start forming off of what Nintendo has done. They're going to start presenting and doing things a little bit differently. But even seeing stuff like the Panzer Dragoon remake, for example, and seeing stuff like the new Contra game that's coming out, the Shadow Drops, I love those. With the Shadow Drops of the Contra collection, the Secret of Mana collection, that was also Shadow Dropped as well, or just, hey, you can download it now at this point. There were so many surprises, and there were so many different games that we're going to be able to play now at this point. Stuff that you can go download right away, stuff that you're going to be able to play in just a couple months' time, showing off more information on games that was revealed last year, like Fire Emblem Three Houses, for example, and some of the time skip stuff, just giving us more information, blowouts on gameplay. That, to me, is what E3 is about. It's about the actual games, being able to get them in a decent amount of time, and stuff that's going to come out this year and next year. Not stuff that doesn't have any type of release date or anything like that. Like the whole show is based on that, but actually stuff that we're going to be able to play this year. Even if you look at the Super Smash Brothers stuff, for example, that had release dates. It was summer, or release windows, summer, and then late 2019 for Banjo, and then it was summer for the Dragon Quest characters. So that is awesome as well. I love to see when they bring hype DLC and they kind of make it like it's an event. And to me, that's the best way to do it when it comes to E3. That's the best way to go about these presentations. And Nintendo Directs are obviously the best format for showing off stuff because you don't have all the different filler with the live conferences. I mean, you can compare Ubisoft's horrible presentation, for example, live conference. They had nowhere near as many games as Nintendo had, yet theirs was more than an hour, and they were shadow striking people's YouTube channels to where we couldn't stream on YouTube. But that's a whole nother thing. The fact that you have a conference that's well over an hour, yet it had nowhere near as many games as Nintendo, just kind of shows you how much filler goes into some of these live conferences, whereas Nintendo's doing things to where it's Nintendo Direct, you can edit things, and heck, even Square Enix did a hybrid. They did a live show mixed with a Nintendo Direct where people were watching. There were so many games that were just like, hey, no live show, you just kind of play the footage right there. So they did a nice little mix of it because they wanted to give us a little bit more of a visceral look at a game that they showed off 5 years ago. So it made sense. And for example, they want to talk about the big Avengers game. So it was great for that. So to me, Square Enix and Nintendo definitely have the right way of doing things, and I'm looking forward to a lot more companies saying, hey, we're going to hold off on this. Let's wait till it's ready. Let's kind of go and attack E3 when we need to. Don't show off games super early to where we don't see anything of the game for the next 3-4 years or whatever the case is. Go into it when you know it's ready and you can show off some really cool footage, and to me, that builds way more impact than announcing a game that we're not going to get for multiple years. So I think more developers and publishers are going to do exactly how Nintendo did it. And of course, how Square Enix kind of caught on and did it too, because last year's show is not very good. So they kind of learned from it. And once again, E3 has kind of shown to me, based off of the games and everything, that it's not about specs and it's not about all this other stuff. All it's about is the games that you're going to be able to play and the fun that you're going to have. So to me, it was really cool to see what Nintendo did. But overall, there was a ton of cool games and I'm looking forward to a lot of different stuff. All right, guys, so that wraps it up for this video here. Go and check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook and Twitter. Go and give us a like and a follow on our social media. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Let me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future. And subscribe to PlayerEssence for this RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.